众大家好，我是今天的翻译教练，我叫 Felix。那在我左手边呢，是我们今天主讲的博士，是佐藤博士。那我们今天讲的主题呢，是延续上一个礼拜我们谈到侧立板的部分，可以去侦测到我们身体的施力的不对称性。那我们今天呢，就要针对这些不对称性的状态呢，我们能够做哪些的训练运动，来让它分布是比较平均的。
Hi, this is Dr. Sato. I'm sure that everybody is staying home and not much special to do, so I hope you guys can watch this practical session using a force plate and looking at some asymmetry value and then how do we actually approach to correct it.
好，那今天我们讲到的地方呢，就是说我们如何用侧立板呢，然后来去设计我们的这个训练方案，然后让我们身体的不对称性呢是能够减少的。
Okay, so from last week's review, I mentioned about the weight distribution asymmetry. And I mentioned the value part that if you have asymmetry less than 5%, usually you're fine. And then 8% becomes kind of warning. So 8% of the weight distribution between left and right. And then I would say more than 15% is really bad. So the correction is needed.
好，那就延续上礼拜的部分吼，我们帮大家做个回顾。如果两边的差距在5% 里面呢是好的，如果差距在8% 里面，那也许我们要注意一下。那如果超过15% 的话呢，我们会针对这个状况呢，会觉得它是不太好的情形。
And I had some people asking questions about how does that asymmetry really influence the performance. So I'm going to actually use one example from the jump testing. So this is from the research data that we did years ago and looking at the jump height and amount of asymmetry in percentage.
好，那有些人会问说，那我们这个不对称性会如何影响到我们的运动表现的部分？那可以看到我们这个图表哦，直的部分呢是我们这个跳跃的高度，横的部分呢是它这个不对称性的差距这样。
And then based on the data, you notice that a lot of the jump is here, especially the higher the jump, you see it as less than 8%. So I draw the yellow line as a 8% cutoff line, and then you see a lot of jump here. It means that most of the time people are less than 8% value to jump higher.
好，那在这个图表的这个左上角的部分呢，它是代表着说，你的对称性它是没有太多不对称性状况，同时呢，它又是跳得比较高的。那这个黄线呢，就是我们刚刚提到的8% 的这条线，所以可以注意到我们左上角的部分，就是它没有太多不对称的情形，然后同时它的表现上跳跃的高度也是比较高的。
And then you notice that after 8% value, you see the correlation start to go down. It means that the higher the asymmetry value, the lower the jump height becomes.
好，那在我们这个黄线的右手边的部分呢，代表就是说它的左右两边的不对称性的状况是比较高的，那但是它跳的就是比较低。
So based on this kind of stuff, it's very obvious that the asymmetry value influence the jump performance between left and right because you're using both sides together. If you have one side more than the other, it happens like this.
好，所以在这个图表中，我们可以很明显的看到，如果你左右两边的不对称性的百分比是比较高的状态下呢，代表你的施力上是不平均、不完整的，所以你跳跃的高度呢就会比较低。
Okay, so based on this data, if I were the person to design the training program, I would create 3 different training programs. The first one is for people here, people who jump high and then not much of asymmetry. The second one I'll create is for those people who needs to have the reduction of asymmetry percentage. And then the last one, the third one is for people here. People who don't have asymmetry but they don't jump high. So simply it's a lack of physical output. So I have 1 group, 2 group, and 3 group for different training system.
好，所以在做这个训练方的设计的时候呢，我们会分成3个部分。 第一个部分呢，是他没有在左上角的部分，他没有太多的不对称的状况，那同时他要跳得比较高，这是第一个部分。第二个部分呢，我们就会针对他有身体的不对称性，那我们试着透过训练方案减少他的不对称性，然后同时呢，希望他的表现是提高的。第三个部分呢，是在左下角的这个部分，他呢没有什么太多的不对称性，但是他就会跳得比较低。那所以我们这时候就会针对他的这个体能的情形呢，去做一个加强。
And then I see this as a common problem when you actually have a team training, because in the team training, everybody do the same thing. Even though data might look like this, if everybody do the same thing, some athletes will not get the maximal effect from training.
所以这个状况呢，尤其是在团队训练的时候，我们尤其要注意到，因为在团队训练的时候，我们做一个团队性的检测，很多人的状况，我们也许做出来的图表分布情形就会像这张图表一样。那这时候如果大家都用同样的训练方案的话，那会注意到，其实我们的选手们他们没有办法得到太多的帮助，所以我们就会按照这样的方式呢来做一个分别。
Okay. So I had some people asking questions about, okay, what kind of exercise is really good, or how do we approach to fix this asymmetry? So I listed as do's and don't do's, okay, when you approach to fix the asymmetry.
那有些人就会开始问说，那我们要用什么方法、什么运动来去修正这个不对称性的状况呢？所以我们这边分两个部分哦，第一个是可以这么做，第二个部分呢就是不要这么做。
So this is all from the evidence base, means that some of us have done some studies to know what kind of exercise or what kind of training program actually helps to reduce the amount of asymmetry.
等一下我们就会根据现有的研究呢，或是证据的部分呢来说，我们要做哪些事情，然后不要去做哪些动作，这样子。
Okay, so the do's, okay, the first one is actually being stronger seems to fix this issue. What it means is, most of the time, the people who have a high asymmetry, they tend to be very, very weak based on a lot of research outcome.
好，那第一个部分就是我们要这么做的部分，就是第一个部分是说，当你的身体变得越来越强壮的时候，似乎是可以修正这个不对称性的情形。
The second one, and then I hope this kind of makes sense, but when you actually have a very light weight to do exercise, you use your sense, okay? So that's why you have asymmetry. But if you actually put heavier weights or you hold heavier weights, you actually correct yourself to be center. Because it's heavy, okay, you actually automatically correct yourself to be very center.
好，那再来呢，就提到说，如果当你使用的训练的过程中，你用比较轻的重量的话，那这个时候你是用自己的身体感觉来去完成这个动作，那它对于修正这个不对称性的部分是不太有帮助的。那所以这时候我们就会用比较重的重量，然后在做这些动作的时候呢，你的身体就会去让重心维持在中间的位置，而不会去左右的偏移。所以这时候我们会使用比较重的这个重量，然后来做这个双侧的动作。
And then another part, when you go to the don't do's, the first thing I mentioned is don't do single leg or single arm exercise, because this will not fix asymmetry issue.
好，那再来提到不要做的部分。那在这个部分呢，博士的意思是说，你不要去做单腿或是单脚的运动，因为这对于修正这个两边左右的不对称性呢，它的帮助是不大的。
Okay, the reason behind it is general idea. When people are asymmetrical, people say, okay, let's do the weaker side to get this one up to be symmetrical. This does not happen from the physical output. If you want to be nearly symmetrical, you have to do the bilateral exercise. Use the both sides simultaneously. Then this one will catch up to be close to equal.
那在一般的概念想法里面呢，会觉得说，如果你左右两边差距很大的话，那我们就是针对弱的那一边做一个单侧的训练。那很可惜的是说，它这样子没有办法去修正这个状况，反而是你要做双侧的训练动作，它才会让两边的这个情形呢，会是不对称性会是比较减少的。
And then kind of leading to previous discussion about using a light weight. Okay, so if you're doing a bilateral exercise, you want to do fairly heavy weight to make yourself equalize. Okay, so you have to do bilateral exercise, and then you have to use a fairly heavy weights in order to keep yourself in the center to equalize the weight shifting.
好，那这时候呢，我们会谈到第二个部分，我谈到这个使用的负荷的部分。那如果说你用比较重的负荷的话，你在做双侧动作出力的时候，它才会将你的身体的重心维持在中间，而不会去左右乱跑这样子。
So this is a very important aspect. And then I want to show you some research findings about the weight distribution asymmetry. So from this data, it's very clear that if you compare strong group and then the weak group of isometric peak force and then the rate of force development, you see the both sides, the weaker group always show higher percentage of asymmetry.
好，那在这边呢，我们透过研究可以看到这个研究讲的就是说，你这个比较强壮的族群跟比较虚弱的族群，在做这个等长收缩的时候，它的顶峰力量最大的力量，它的差距跟它的发力率的差距，那可以看到越强壮的人，它的差距是不对称性的差距是比较小的。
So when I mentioned about comparing the weak and the strong, some people ask me how weak is weak or how strong is strong.
好，那当我们在比较说强壮的族群跟比较虚弱的族群的时候，我们是要做一个定义，因为有些人会问说，那怎么定义它是强壮的，怎么定义它是虚弱的呢？
So the strength value is very relative to the sports because every sport has a different strength index. Okay, some athletes are more skill-oriented sports. They might not need that much of physical strength. So what I'm talking about is people who shows a high asymmetry. Chances are they're physically weak. So if you do the physical training to actually get stronger and more powerful, chances are the asymmetry start to decrease.
好，那在定义这个强壮或虚弱的族群的时候，我们会先了解到它的这个运动的项目是什么。因为有些运动项目呢，它是很需要你的体能的能力，但是有些运动项目呢，它是比较偏重这个技巧导向的，那它的体能能力就没有那么好。所以这时候呢，我们就会看它的这个所谓的不对称性。然后，如果它不对称性很高，那我们透过这个体能的训练呢，来让它的这个身体的不对称性呢，是能够慢慢的缩小的。
Okay, let's look at this training program. So another study actually tried to see if the training program really can fix this asymmetry. So this training program is 12 weeks long, and then every 3 weeks, okay, and then one in between, you have the training design to have 4 sets of 8 repetitions, 6 sets of 5 repetitions with relatively heavy weight, and then 6 sets of 3 training with really heavy weight. So we're actually designing a training program with relatively high intensity to do weight training.
好，所以呢，在这边我们看到这个肌力训练的计划就是针对这个我们如何去修正我们的身体的不对称性的情形。那它这里就分几个阶段第一个阶段呢，就是做4组8下的训练。然后呢，它每3个礼拜它会有测试啊，或是做一个减量的部分。然后第二个阶段呢，你可以看到是6组5下，那也是针对肌力的训练。然后第3个部分呢是6组3下，也是针对这个肌力的强化。所以在我们做这个不对称性修正的时候呢，我们主要还是着重在你去如何去提高你的身体的肌力这样子。
Okay, so the training program itself is pretty high intense for 2 days a week. Even though it's 2 days a week, but you are still doing pretty high intensity exercise.
那所以在这个部分呢，我们就是做一个高强度的肌力训练。那虽然说1个礼拜只有两次的训练，但是因为也是高强度的部分，所以它能够去帮助你达到修正的效果。
So let's look at the outcome here. So the main focus is how does it influence in the weaker group. So I want to mention about the weaker groups data, and then you can see from pre to post, okay? The asymmetry percentage actually went down. So actually our prediction of doing the weight training with relatively heavy weight really reduce the amount of percentage in asymmetry.
好，那接着我们就来看看说我们刚刚这个肌力训练计划之后的结果吧。那尤其我们看到我们的左手边这个虚弱的部分，那可以看到虚弱的部分呢，它的差异的指数是下降的，也就是说它身体的不对称性是减少的。那也就是说，它在随着它的身体变强壮的过程中，它就修正了它身体的不对称情形。
So this tells us that some people ask me what kind of exercise is really good. Okay, the quick answer is if you do any bilateral exercises with relatively high intensity, you don't have to do many repetitions. You might have to do many sets in order to do small number of repetitions. But if you engage in strength training, chances are you reduce the amount of asymmetry.
那很多人就会问说，那我们到底要去做哪些运动的选择，然后来去减低我们身体不对称的情形呢？那透过这个研究报告，我们可以得到说，其实重点并不是说你做了哪些运动，重点比较会放在说我们去如何提升我们身体的这个强壮的能力。那所以它就不会说是做很多下，那它不会有很多的反复，反而是做比较少的次数，然后同时把你的强度负荷拉高。那透过这样的方式呢，就可以减低我们身体的不对称情形了。
Okay, so another study, this is a very interesting one for people who tend to do single leg exercise if you have unbalance between left side and right side. So this one is showing the single leg squat and then the two leg squat, the normal squat. Okay, and then this is actually the EMG value of quadriceps muscle. As you can see, the single leg squat, the EMG value for the mean and then the peak, okay, is definitely lower than both legs. So this tells me that the muscle activation, if you do a single leg, is not as good as getting a signal in both legs.
好，那所以可以看到这个图表，就是说我们在做单腿的深蹲跟普通的双腿深蹲的时候呢，那我们透过这个肌电图的反应来看我们这个股四头肌它的受力的程度。那一个是平均值，另一个是它的顶峰值。那都可以注意到，这两边的数据，就是你做普通的深蹲跟单腿的深蹲的部分，数据上来讲呢，都是你的双腿的深蹲，就是普通的深蹲，它的受力、它的肌电图的反应，它是比较高的数值。
So if you want to correct this potential asymmetry between left and right, I have two news for you. Okay, the single leg exercise probably good to do for rehabilitation purpose. So after injury, okay, for the neuromuscular purpose, it's okay to do the single leg exercise. However, number two, if you're trying to close a gap between left and right, purely from the muscle force production purpose, the two leg, the bilateral exercise, much better choice to do so.
好，那我们从这个图表，我们可以得到两个部分哦。第一个部分呢是单腿的深蹲呢的部分，或单腿的运动的部分，那它会对你的神经肌肉的征召会是比较好的。那这时候我们会比较常用在像是你受伤之后的这个复健的训练过程里面，我们会这样使用。那第二个部分呢，当我们真的想要去修正我们身体的不对称性的时候呢，我们会选择做双侧的运动，也就像是刚刚提到的双腿深蹲、普通的深蹲的部分，它才会是比较是能够修正我们身体的不对称性的情形。
Okay, so just like last time, okay, let's do some demonstration because we have the force plate set up in a squat rack, so I can show you guys some examples on how to correct the asymmetry with those exercises.
好，那我们现在就会来做一些运动。那我们会在测力板上来让大家看到这个对称性跟不对称性的数值的部分。
Okay, so the first one as a refresher, I'm gonna step on, okay, on the force plate, okay, and then I'm gonna have weight distribution, okay, and then let you click, okay. So here, very good, okay. So here, I have almost perfect score, okay? Because I've been doing this for a long time, I guess I'm very equal I learned how to do this pretty well. Okay.
好，那所以我们现在看到就是博士在测力板上测的就是你的静态的站姿。那可以看到它两边的差距是很小的部分哦。那因为它也是做了这样的练习很多年，所以它的差距呢是很小的。
So let's have Coach Felix come over and then actually use the bar to do the exercise on the force plate.
好，那现在呢，我会用这个安全杠的部分做这个深蹲，然后会在这个测力板上做。那大家可以去注意到我们在测力板上的数值是如何。
So what I'm setting up here for him is he's gonna have a barbell, okay, pretty long, so he cannot actually tilt this way. Okay, he cannot tilt side by side because it's heavy. So he's gonna have to force himself to be center.
好，所以因为我现在这个背着这个杠铃，那同时它又很长，所以我身体就不太有这个倾斜的情形。那虽然这个重量，如果重量再慢慢加上来的话，就我们刚刚提到，它就是一个比较会更高强度的状态，那身体的不稳定性就会更低。
So let's do the trial first. So I'll let you stay there, okay, and then hit the record, okay. So right now I have right around 14-15% difference between the two, okay.
好，那现在我是静态站姿，那就得到一个数据，就差不多15%这样子，就不太妙了。
So because of this wide difference, so what I'm gonna let him do the second one is let's do slow squat. Okay, slow squat. Okay, you don't have to go deep, but you're gonna go a little bit slow motion of the squat.
好，等一下我会做一个慢动作深蹲，那大概是1/4吨而已。OK。
Okay. Alright. 3, 2, 1, go. Slow, 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 slow. Good. Up. Okay. And then one more. Slow, 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 slow. Up. Okay. Good. Okay. So now, actually, you can see here. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit closer. Okay. The value here, actually, before it was about the 15% difference on the graph. And then as he squats down, you can see sometimes the value gets closer and closer. It tells me that he has to force himself to use both sides simultaneously, so the force value gets really close.
好，所以刚刚可以看到我在静态的时候，它两边的差距是蛮大的。那现在我做一个动态慢速有控制的深蹲的时候，它两边差距是有点缩小的。所以这就意味着，当我在做这个训练，这样速度的动作的时候，我会需要控制它，所以我两边的出力呢，就会试着让它是变平衡的状态。
So bilateral exercise with a fairly heavy weight, okay, you can actually go slow, 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 and then you're gonna have to use your both legs same time, and then in result, the value of asymmetry actually gets smaller.
好，所以当你在做双侧的训练的时候，你可以用一个比较慢速，然后有控制的，然后有高负荷的状态下，然后去让它慢慢的下来，然后让它的两边的出力呢是越来越接近的。
Okay. The second one I'm gonna let him do is this time, let's go quicker. Okay, so you're gonna go up, up. Okay, so let's do it 3 repetitions, a little bit quicker movement.
好，等一下我会做快速的动作，然后我会做3下。
Okay. All right. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Good. 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 Okay. So here I'm gonna actually zoom in. Okay. So I hope you can see this. Okay. So if you have this much difference in the beginning, okay, about 15% difference, but when he dips down to push off, actually, if you can actually see this spot right here, okay, you can see how close the value is on a concentric push portion.
所以可以看到这个图的部分哦。当我在做这个快速动作的时候呢，它的差距呢，尤其是在向心的时候，它反而是变小的部分。
So the first repetitions, he's actually very asymmetrical as far as the weight distribution goes, but the ones that actually he squats down and push off, it becomes really close to each other.
好，所以尤其是在第一下的时候，可以看到我一开始静态的时候，它的差距是蛮大的。那可是当我在做第一下的向心动作的时候，它两边的差距反而是接近平均的这样子。
Okay, and then the second and the third rep kind of go back to this gap. So you have almost about 10% difference between the two, which is okay because again, just like anything else, it's not the magic. Exercise is not magic. You have to work as a process to fix this. But at least the first one, I can see that the correction is there.
好，那可以注意到第二下、第三下的时候呢，我的差距又变大了，那差不多又回到10% 左右吧。那所以说，我们透过这样的图表可以注意到说，其实训练它不是一朝一夕的事情，它是一个进程，就是会越来越好的进程。那所以至少我们在第一下中可以看到，至少这样的训练，它对于它的这个不对称性，它是略有帮助的。
Okay, so let's go back to the screen here. Some of the main part of this kind of exercise, okay, because many people don't have a full split. So some people ask me, so how do we know if my athletes have asymmetry or not?
好，那其实并不是每个教练或是每个训练的人或是运动人，他都有这个测力板。那所以有些人就会问说，那我们到底要怎么去看他的这个不对称性的这样？
The answer is actually pretty simple. So if I don't have access to full split, usually I do the testing on, let's say the single leg broad jump, okay, to see how far you can go, or single leg lateral jump to see how far you go, and then you can actually record the left side and right side to see how much asymmetry people have.
那没有测力板的替代方式，我们就会用单腿的跳跃的方式，像是单腿跳跃，我们看它的左右两边的差距，或是单腿的侧跳，我们一样看它左右两边的差距，然后来去确定它的身体的不对称性的情形。
Okay, and then some agility testing as well. You go to the left side or you go to the right side. You can actually do left and right comparison easily, not only using the full split.
好，那像是有些敏捷性啊，或是这个改变方向的这个测试也是一样，你往右边或往左边，那它两边的这个时间上可能会略有不同。
Okay, so to summarize the idea of asymmetry, I understand that many people ask me what kind of exercise is really good. Okay, it's actually the answer not related to what exercise. Okay, what training process helps to reduce the asymmetry values?
好，那我们就为今天的这个部分做一个简单的总结。简单来讲呢，我们并不会去说，我们要做哪些运动或运动的选择来去修正、减少我们身体的不对称性，反而是我们去怎么去执行这些运动、训练的过程，才是能够真正去解决你的不对称性的这个部分。
And then I understand that the people at home don't have access to the gym to do the weight training. So some of the things I come up with is you can actually use the heavy water bottle, the water tank, okay, to do the farmer's walk. That's a great exercise to work on correction of symmetry because you have to use both legs to walk. Okay, so you can do those kind of bilateral exercise with relatively high intensity with the water as a resistance.
好，那因为知道很多人都待在家里，那不会去到这个健身房或训练中心，然后来去做一些举重的动作。那所以你在家里可以怎么做呢？你可以挑选2个很大的水桶啊，或是水瓶啊，然后装满水，然后它有一定的负荷嘛。那在这个时候呢，你就做一个农夫走路的动作。那这个走路的动作呢，它同时也是一个双侧的运动，或者是如果你有更多的水平，就可以用它来做一些双侧的训练动作，也是可以。
And then lastly, again, I would not choose single leg exercise. It's a great exercise in the beginning as a rehabilitation, but for the performance effect, I would pick the bilateral exercises over single leg exercise if the intention is to correct between left and right asymmetry.
那在这边呢，博士又再次提到说，他不会去做这个单边的动作。那如果说你是在做一个复健啊、修复的过程中，那也许单边的动作，它是可以的。可是如果你的目标呢是要让你的身体的不对称性减少的话呢，那他就会选择去做双边的这个训练动作，这样。
Okay, again, thank you very much for watching. I'm sure that many of you are staying home and then possibly watching this. If you have any questions, let us know and then we can address any questions relating to the sports performance, injury prevention, any kinds of stuff is welcome.
好，那今天非常感谢大家的收看。那如果大家有任何疑问呢，欢迎在底下留言。那不论你是想要增进运动表现啊，或是伤害预防啊，或是任何的状况呢，你都可以在底下留言，或是发讯息给我们。那谢谢大家。
Okay, thank you very much and stay home and then stay healthy.
好，那祝大家就是待在家里，然后祝各位身体健康，然后保持安全的距离，这样子，谢谢。